In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week. And now it's time for...
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's random.
Is that a fact?
Is that a fact?
4 random facts.
There are 20 countries in the world with no rivers. Saudi Arabia is by far the biggest. It's over 800,000 square miles, 0 rivers.
Well, it's a lot of desert out there, isn't it? Hey, Kenneth Branagh, first person to be nominated for an Oscar in 5 different categories. He's been up in Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Live Action Short Film.
Wow. Very, very talented man. Dr. Seuss coined the word nerd in his 1950 book, If I Ran the Zoo.
He's like, you're a nerd.
That's where it all started.
You use that word all the time. Well, as a term of endearment, usually.
Absolutely.
And finally, the most expensive internet domain name that was ever sold was cars.com. It sold for $872.3 million.
Why were we not smart in doing this? So many people went out and did this, right? They registered those domain names in the early days so that they could hang on to them and sell them later. There's your 4 random facts.
Today's
1, 2, 3,
4
So random.
random.
Give the public the facts.
4 random facts.
Yum. Science.
Not rocket science. Check it out. I blinded us with science.
Well, who knew that plants can be stressed out? So scientists say that when plants are stressed, they actually make noise.
And they have a recording of it. This is what it sounds like.
Isn't that something?
So it's not like it's screaming in pain, but they say it's more like it's emitting a very informative sound to let you know that it's stressed out and, you know, I guess maybe needs water or fertilizer or something.
Probably water. Let's face it. If it's most of our plants, it's probably like, oh, I'm thirsty.
Or you've been overwatering it maybe.
So thirsty. Scientists filmed the deepest fish ever observed at over 27,000 feet or over 8,000 meters deep in the southeast of Japan. Now, snailfish were spotted swimming by sea robots. So the fish were likely swimming there to avoid predators that were lurking a little bit higher, but that's the first time they've ever seen them go this deep. And normally fish are not believed to survive much deeper than 8,400 meters, so they were cutting it pretty close.
Ooh.
Yeah, really close.
We don't want to go much deeper then.
Well, go deep or get eaten. Make your choice.
Here's something you might not want to tell your boss. Recent studies suggest that breaks during your workday can actually have a negative impact on certain tasks. So researchers studied the impact of 10-minute breaks on work performance in an office-like setting. The participants were tested on cognitive tasks over the course of 7 hours. Now, regular breaks actually seem to bring on mental exhaustion because it disrupted their attention, their learning, and their focus. And it turns out scheduling breaks is also a bit of a form of work. So, you know, they say that you should be taking a break, but at more sort of like a natural point, not at a set time.
And that's the problem, I think, right? Your break time is 10:30. You must stop everything you're doing.
I would also point out, too, the participants that they studied were only men between the ages of 20 and 29. I think you might need to open it up to a wider range and maybe different genders.
Yeah, let's do a bigger study. You know, drinking coffee will get you more steps each day, but you'll also get less sleep. So it was found that on days when participants drank coffee, they took an average of a little over 1,000 more steps than non-coffee days. Non-coffee days.
I was just about to say, what are non-coffee days?
First time I think I've ever said those words in consecutive sequence. But on days when they had a cup, sleep took a hit, with participants getting 36 fewer minutes of shut-eye. The more coffee they drank, the more physical activity and less sleep they got.
I think I know why. The days that I don't drink coffee are the days I'm usually sick, so I'm not getting my steps in because I'm lying in bed.
Correlation there.
And finally, Ford, the automaker, has received a patent for an innovative new technology. Apparently, they're going to be using a swarm of drones to head out and jumpstart your car if your battery ever dies.
Isn't that wild?
Sounds kind of interesting. And the only thing is I'd have to worry about, you know, electricity, battery, robotics, drones. Could be, a recipe for disaster.
I just think all these things flying around, is that going to be a good idea?
That looks like a battery.
Well, it sounds a little bit better than this idea.
Coming soon, our AI-powered chainsaw drones for tree trimming.
Oh, look out!
Yeah, we are
we're still working on that one. Ford, we built the first car assembly line, and we'll be the first with drone jumper cables. Oh boy.
You remember those commercials where, someone's getting all worked up and they're like, hey, here's a Snickers bar. You're not yourself. Well, maybe that person should be reaching for some peppermint if you have a little bit of road rage.
Yeah, this new study found that the scent of peppermint can actually reduce aggressive driving behaviors. So road rage may be believed just by breathing in a little peppermint. And I guess you could get that from one of those little tree air fresheners.
They say it isn't a huge surprise. The compounds in peppermint oil have been known to have a positive calming effect on the brain, helping to relieve all sorts of things like stress, anxiety, and more.
So in this study, they used peppermint oil. So technically, it isn't just the smell of peppermint. So they say you might need to invest in a higher quality air freshener that was created from actual peppermint oil. And so it's not clear if this might work with other scents. They only did it with peppermint versus no scent. So, if you find that maybe vanilla or cinnamon calms you, you should get one of those scents instead.
So if you need a little bit of calming and relaxing in your vehicle, go out and invest in one of those air fresheners. Technology has really gotten really good at helping us to find things we've lost. You've got those air tags that you can put on your luggage and things like that.
Well, I had to do that about like a month ago, right? I couldn't find my phone. It had slipped into a weird spot in the house. I would have never found it. But I was able to log onto my laptop and track my device through the Samsung and the Google websites.
Mm-hmm. Well, iPhone has something similar, right? Find My iPhone app.
Yes, and there is actually a guy down in Texas who says Apple has a bit of a glitch right now because multiple angry people keep showing up at his door claiming that their lost or stolen iPhone shows that it's at his house.
Yeah, his name's Scott. He says it's happened about a dozen times over the past year, and for some reason the Find My Own app's GPS is directing people to his house, but he does not have their phones.
Had to wake up and go answer the door and explain to them that I don't have their device. And people don't tend to believe you.
Well, the cops are on their way over here, so you may want to come talk to me before they come here.
There's plenty of irrational people in the world that if they're angry, if they're drunk, if they, have had a rough night and they lost their phone and thought it was stolen, that's my biggest concern. Someone coming to the house, potentially with a weapon.
Here's the thing, too. It's Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if you have someone show up with a gun at your front door because some of these new phones, they're worth between $1,500 and $2,000 now alone. So he's reached out to Apple to try to figure out what's going on, and they haven't done anything. So he's now reached out to some local news channels to, try to get their help and figure out what's going on. But he's got a couple of kids, so he's worried that the situation could get very dangerous. And you'd be afraid to just answer the door at any time now.
Apple hasn't commented yet. Scott says his neighbors like to tease him that he's the neighborhood iPhone thief. But in all seriousness, he says he does not go and steal anyone's iPhones. And now it's turning into, a bit of a scary situation.
Yeah, you have angry people in a state where you can legally carry a firearm.
Let's hope they can get it figured out soon. So back in the day when Pablo Escobar had his, whole operation going and he had a huge estate, he decided for some unknown reason to bring in a bunch of hippos.
Apparently he liked hippos. So he brought in all these hippos and, then when things went down and he was apprehended, the hippos on his sort of compound escaped. And they've now been breeding out in the wild in Colombia. And they've been trying to figure out ways to deal with this issue because the issue with the hippos is that they are breeding and reproducing, and they're extremely violent, and they're not native to that area.
They're stomping on crops, and it's dangerous for people. So Colombia is now going to shell out almost $4 million to move 70 hippos to Mexico and India. So they had tried sterilizing some hippos, but it doesn't have, done a whole lot. So 10 hippos will be sent to a sanctuary in northern Mexico, and then the other 60 will be sent to India. However, as you can imagine, trying to wrangle them, no easy task.
Hippos are not the friendliest of creatures. They are pretty aggressive, and they're also extremely heavy. So this is going to be quite the process to get them flown or shipped around the world. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to keep them tranquilized the entire time.
So from that story about hippos to this one about a cow.
Yeah, I think this story proves my theory that not all cows are friendly. I know people are always asking if they can come over and pet the cows at my parents. I'm like, well, you can try. They haven't been socialized. And apparently this cow that this jogger in Maine came across had not been socialized either. Police say this jogger was getting ready to go out for an afternoon run when she was charged by a cow. The animal barreled into her, flinging her into the air with its horns.
Ooh, man.
Luckily, she escaped. She was able to run to some nearby trees for cover and then call 911. An ambulance was sent out to check her out, and she's going to be okay. She had some, minor cuts, and not minor, I guess. They required stitches, so some big cuts and bruises. But they were able to track down the owner of the cow, who came out and trapped it and got it back home. They also found a large pig roaming in the area, so apparently these two had escaped their pasture area.
So I guess the next plan is to fix the fence and the hole in the fence, right? Mm-hmm. And the oldest orca held in captivity has been gained her release after more than 50 years after she was caught in the waters off the Pacific Northwest. So the Miami Seaquarium has finally agreed to begin the process of returning the orca to Puget Sound after years of pressure from all sorts of different people. So the orca was called Lolita during her performance years, is living in the smallest orca enclosure in North America.
Ooh, that wouldn't be very comfortable.
Good. Well, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, Jim Irsay, is actually credited with making a generous contribution that helped to secure the release. I'm writing you a check. Give us the whale. Mm-hmm. And so now the whale is going to be released.
The one question I would have, how long has this whale been, it's been in captivity for more than 50 years. How is she going to fare out in the wild again, though?
Well, I guess it'll be, at least they'll monitor probably and see. Now, they are endangered species and certainly held in high regard by the people of the Northwest. So maybe they're just thinking, okay, it's an endangered species. It's not living its best life in this little enclosure down in Florida. Let's take a chance and at least release it in the wild and see how it works out. So public phone charging stations, very popular, but now there's a warning about them.
The FBI is telling the public they shouldn't be using these public charging stations in places like airports, hotels, or shopping centers because they say people have figured out ways to use those public USB ports to introduce malware and monitoring software onto your devices.
Of course. They're always trying to find a way to get into your information. So you could be unknowingly connecting your phone to bad stuff through the USB, which includes software that gives hackers access to your device.
There's a simple workaround, though. Just bring your full charging cable with the brick. Then there won't be any issues because you just plug it into an electrical outlet and then plug that directly into your port. I don't know about you, but I know you've told me stories about your daughter, your kids, and how there's two people in the world. Those who let their phone get down to 2%, and then there's me who's it's at 50%. I better go charge it.
Yeah.
I better boost it up in case.
Yes, exactly. And those are the same people that let their vehicles go to 10 kilometers, as I told that story.
They never have a charger with them. They're always at, can I borrow your charger? Can I borrow your charger? Do you have a charger?
You know what I think we need to do, and we may have talked about this already. I think I'm going to get each of them for Christmas one of those charging blocks. But then you know what they would do? They would forget to charge that. So it wouldn't matter. Do you remember a few years ago there used to be a meme called Good Guy Greg? Right? So Good Guy Greg was always that guy that would be there to help you out. Well, maybe it should be changed to Good Guy Brad.
Well, we're talking about Brad Pitt, to be exact. So back in 1994, apparently, Brad bought a home in L.A. from Elvira. Yes, the mistress of dark. Over the years, he then proceeded to buy up surrounding properties to increase the size of his estate. And I think also probably to, protect his privacy. Mm-hmm. If no one can build near you, you protect your privacy. One of the properties belonged to a man who at the time was in his early 90s. Apparently his wife had recently passed away and he didn't want to leave. So Brad worked out a plan with the guy. He said, I'm going to buy the property and you can live on the property rent-free as long as you want for the rest of your life. Well, the guy who lived on that property just passed away. He lived to be 105 and he's lived there since 1994 rent-free.
Isn't that amazing? Elvira was talking about it. She says she thinks Brad didn't necessarily expect maybe the guy to live that long, but he never broke their deal. She bought a place nearby, so she and Brad remain neighbors, and I guess that has some perks. She was talking about a time that she was walking her dogs past his house while he was training for Fight Club. Quote, I go past Brad's garage and he's there wearing only sweatpants. He's got on boxing gloves and he's hitting a punching bag. I swear I almost fainted.
Oh, I think most women you see him when he was in Fight Club, man. He was jacked. He was ripped.
She said, I remember he goes, hey, how are you? And I'm like, huh? I couldn't talk. I was turning all red. I felt like I was fainting. He's stunningly handsome. And to top it off, just a nice guy. Pretty cool. By the way, he bought that place from Elvira for $1.7 million. Last month, he sold it for $40 million. Nice little return on that investment, but ultimately, pretty cool what he did for that senior citizen.
Good morning.
Wakes me up. It just makes my morning.
It just puts me in a good mood because it makes me feel good.
It's time to put some good into your morning.
All right, here we go.
Pretty amazing story of what's happened to this Michigan family for the first time in over 130 years.
Carolyn and Andrew Clark just welcomed a newborn by the name of Audrey over 2 weeks ago on St. Patrick's Day. Here's the thing, though. According to the family records on Andrew's side of the family, this is the first daughter born in the family since 1885.
Wow. Now, the mom, Carolyn, admitted she heard the news about a decade ago when she first started dating Andrew, and she couldn't quite believe her ears. She said, I asked his parents to confirm that information, and they're like, oh yeah, we haven't had a girl in our direct line. She said he's had uncles and cousins that have had girls, but in his lineage, there had not been a girl in over 130 years.
It's always been a boy. Mm-hmm. Brothers. So if they finally broke that... How long is it? 1885 until 2023.
85.
Yeah.
130 years.
Kind of crazy. Now, they did have one of those gender reveal parties back in the fall. And to everyone's surprise, when they cut into these custom cookies, they were pink. And everyone lost their minds.
I bet that was quite a moment. Arrived at a healthy 6 pounds, 8 ounces. You look at the fact that we're into 2023 now, and you think back at the 2000s. You're talking 20 years ago now. 20 years ago was 2003. Hard to believe that. And we've got some pop culture from the 2000s.
Did you know Anne Hathaway was actually the 9th choice to play Andy in The Devil Wears Prada?
9th choice.
9th choice. I want to know who the other 8 were. Should go and Google that. So, yeah, Devil Wears Prada came out back in 2006.
In 2001, the iPod came out, and its name was inspired by the line, "Open the pod bay door, Hal," from the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Is it because they released it in 2001?
I wonder if they targeted that as the release date to have it ready.
Finding Nemo, one of my all-time favorite movies. It came out in 2003, and it is the best-selling DVD of all time. Oh, yeah, I own that one on DVD.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
I was say, I own it. I believe my nephews have claimed it, though, now.
2001, Shrek came out, and Mike Myers originally recorded his Shrek dialogue in his normal voice, but then decided to go back and re-record it.
Initially, I did it with a very thick Canadian accent, and then I determined that the accent that is of the people that I feel warmth towards and kinship are Scottish people. Scottish people have an amazing ability to go from happy to angry. And part of the things of ogres is that they're angry folk. And so if you go to a Scottish person's house, it can be all that. It's great. I'm so glad you came over. Now would you take your shoes off? I had recorded all of it one way, and I said, I can do better. And Steven Spielberg said, great. And I redid all of it. And then I got a letter from Steven Spielberg saying, thank you very much for caring.
By the way, redoing the movie to fit his new dialogue cost an extra $4 million.
But hey, it might have been the difference between it being the hit that it became and, being a flop.
But that's a lot of trust. That's a $4 million piece of trust. And yeah, it certainly worked out.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.